Hello, everybody. We are live. We're a little bit more informal today. A lot of people have things to do with Memorial Day weekend. Somebody from the chat room decided that they wouldn't mind joining us. His name's Ed Heckman. I'm going to bring him in right now.
Oh, great.
Hey, Ed Heckman, how are you doing? Can we hear you? Can you speak? We just want to check the volumes.
I can hear you.
I can hear you too. That is all we need. You might want to shift yourself a little bit to center your face, but I know it's your first time on here. So those kind of cosmetic little things are things you learn a little bit over time. But I was just saying, it's Monday night. It's time for the chat room. I know that Mitch went to a baseball game. I'm probably going to go to a baseball game on Thursday myself. But, a lot of people have extra time off and via family commitments, and maybe talking baseball is not their biggest thing today. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Glad Ed could make it. Awesome.
There are some people out there.
Could get some fresh voices in here.
Yeah, basically anybody is eligible to come on. Normally we'll just we'll talk to them for a second just to make sure that they feel comfortable. But if you're ready to go, Eddie, go ahead.
Yes, I am. I saw the Orioles lose today.
You saw who lose?
The Orioles.
Wow.
I watched the beginning of that game. I did.
14 in a row.
Good for them.
I actually watched that game and I had some hope there, and then they always find ways to lose games. A wild pitch to tie it, or something like that to give up a run, and then they fell apart at the seams. That Orioles bullpen is awful.
I saw that they brought Cesar Valdez in the seventh inning today, so that's probably a changeover on fantasy-wise for.
Definitely.
Was it Tanner Scott in the ninth? I know everybody's waiting for Connor Harvey to come back.
Fry.
I see Paul Fry came in. Yeah, he came in at the ninth, I think, for the eighth in a key situation.
Did he convert? I didn't look at. Forgive me for not looking at the Orioles that closely.
Yeah.
Let me check.
They ended up losing it like a wild, typical Baltimore Orioles.
They lost 3-2, and the scoring play that lost it was. Oh, they lost in the 10th. DJ Stewart hit a. Oh, sorry, no. The other team scored 2 runs, and the Orioles only scored 1.
And DJ Stewart was stranded on third with nobody out.
I was going to say, Stewart was in tying run at third in the in the extra innings, and they couldn't get him in with nobody out. That's just the way it's going for the Orioles.
And you're here on the Legend Network, where we'll keep you updated on all the Baltimore Oriole games because nobody else will.
Right. We're masochists to watch this. But, I watch them from San Diego. So I get Ed's back there, but I'm in San Diego and I watch them. So
I'm a Cub fan, and all it was home runs today. Javi Baez hit 2 home runs.
Wisdom.
Patrick Winston hit 1. I think the craziest thing of the day, as far as home runs go, is do you know who hit 2 home runs off of Carlos Rodon today? Who owns Carlos Rodon?
Cesar Hernandez. Yeah,
Cesar Hernandez never had a 2 home run game in his life. That's what it said. That's what I read.
The first 2 batters hit home runs off of Rodon today. Ahmad Rosario followed up Cesar Hernandez in the first inning.
And then
Hi, Andrea.
I yanked Andrea into the thing. Andrea, meet Eddie. Eddie, meet Andrea. I just
met Andrea in person.
I was going to say that. I was going to explain that when it was about 5 minutes of, and I didn't have anybody here. I just invited anyone from the chat room, and Eddie graciously decided to join us.
Thank you.
It was 5 minutes of, and I didn't have anybody here. I just invited anyone. We got a little echo because I think there's somebody broadcasting somewhere. Okay. I don't think it's you, Eddie, because it wasn't there before. I think it's the new girl. Anyway.
What am I doing? Is there echo?
I heard myself speak for a second, but all right, it's gone.
That's because you're right. Because I have all these windows open. I'm sorry. So can you hear me? Obviously you can hear me.
You're a little bit muffled to me. Do you guys get the same thing from her?
Yes.
Okay, 1 second. Just take me out of the picture for a minute and keep talking. I will get this worked out.
How do I take you out? Remove. There you go. I was going to open up with this thing. You know, I live in Florida. Eddie, you live near Baltimore?
Yes, Ellicott City, Maryland.
This is the weekend in the paper for people in Florida that we get our hurricane preparedness stuff, right? It says, like, you know, these are things you should do. So it had a list of all the names of hurricanes this year, okay? And they did something with the thing that's going to be the talk of baseball in September. The 16th and 17th hurricane, the two names put together make up an iconic baseball player. And I was going to ask you guys to guess who do you think that was. At one point in September, there's going to be two hurricanes out there that make the name of a baseball player who's very famous. And I'll give you this hint. The 16th hurricane starts with the letter P. And like, this is the kind of thing Andrea would like a lot. But I just thought it was kind of funny. But in September, they're going to be making a big deal out of this. The 16th hurricane is going to be named Pete, and the next letter is R because they skip Q. Pete Rose is going to be decimating the coastline of Florida, and I think that's kind of crazy.
Well, the weird thing about that, I'm kind of a memorabilia type of dork. Pete Rose will probably, if he needs the cash, he'll probably be signing autographs somehow, incorporating. Like,
well, there's no doubt.
Hurricane,
as Pete Pete, you know, decimates Haiti, and Rose hits Key West. There'll be Pete Rose doing something somewhere out there.
Oh yeah, $40 an autograph or something for that.
But like I said, you that'll be a big story in baseball in September. You heard it here first.
Hi guys.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah.
I was telling them about the hurricanes that are coming this year. The 16th hurricane is going to be named Peter. The 17th hurricane is going to be named Rose. We're going to have Peter Rose out there hitting.
When are they coming?
Well, last year we had 30 named storms, so I would say middle September.
Can you hear me good or what?
Yeah, I hear you a lot better than last time.
Okay, Eddie Heckman, nice to see you, dude.
Hi, how you doing?
Nice to see you. Good. I don't know about the hurricanes, but when they come here, I just wait because they never bother us here, really.
I just think that somebody out there is playing a joke because they named the hurricanes in sequence Pete Rose.
Oh, I didn't even hear you. Honestly, it didn't click. I heard you, but it did not click. What the names were? It didn't really click that it was Pete Rose. That's funny. Okay, that's all. I hate to come late and make a big scene.
That was just my little icebreaker. Well, it takes a minute to get people together. I always say that about the one thing like Lenny does really well is that he'll often like come onto his show like 2 minutes early, just give people a chance to show up. You don't want to do anything too important in the first 2-3 minutes. You know?
Yeah.
But, you know, give everyone a chance to show up, including ourselves, because we're always well ahead of schedule, well prepared.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I will believe that.
You know, I had a few things to talk about today, and you know, I would have been watching USA Baseball if I wasn't here, and if I could get it on TV. So that was it.
What do you mean you couldn't watch baseball today?
This is you.
The Olympics.
I wanted to see the Olympics. There are some interesting players that are playing in there. Yeah. Names from our past, but a number of prospects. And today, Matthew Liberatore was on the mound for the opening game. He's still pitching. It's only the second inning, and the USA is up 2-0. But ESPN bought the rights to these games, and ESPN decided to only broadcast them on the ESPN Plus app. So I own everything else from ESPN, which I've been thinking about canceling a lot of it because it's not really that worthwhile. It would cost me like $6 to get that stuff, and I think ESPN gets enough of my money already. So screw those guys.
Is it not on? I can't believe that they bought the rights, but they're not showing it.
They're only showing it on the ESPN app on your phone.
And you have to pay for it.
It's a different subscription, whereas like I have all the ESPN stuff kind of bundled together. And because I watch college football, I like to have the ESPN college package. So they're getting like $14 a month for me, which is a lot on cable. It's like Netflix just for college football games. It's like, I don't like you guys. But anyway, they're out there. But I had a list of some of the guys that were playing that were kind of interesting names, like batting third for the USA team is Todd Frazier.
Mm-hmm.
Batting fifth is Matt Kemp. The oldest guy on the team is Edwin Jackson. The one guy I'm kind of excited
Homer
about.
Bailey. Isn't Homer Bailey?
Yeah, Homer Bailey, John Jay, David Robertson, and Mark Shipsinski are on the team. The one guy that I'm kind of actually excited about is on the Dominican Republic team. You know who they got? They got Joey Batista back for this, and I always loved Joey Bats.
Yeah.
And, they also have Melky Cabrera and prospect Julio Rodriguez playing.
And is that U.S. team? Honestly, is that any good? Are they going to win anything?
They should.
Seems like a terrible team.
It's hard to say because every team is pretty terrible. Like I watched USA qualifying, like the Premier 12 that happened last year, well before the pandemic, and the truth is that like 7 of the teams that were playing in that league batted under 200. The USA hit like 230. It was just really poor. Maybe that was kind of a like telegraphing what we're going to see in baseball now, where people aren't hitting. There's a lot of teams not hitting, but at the same time, some of the teams that used to be great aren't as great as they once were. Like Cuba is still a very good baseball team, but they're not the number 1 team. They're like the number 5 team because they've lost so many players, including one of their best players defected this weekend. Did you hear that story?
No.
Cesar Preitas, who was he's a 22-year-old second baseman. He was a rookie of the year 3 years ago, and he had played 78 games this year for the CNS team. He was hitting 402 with a 5. Crazy numbers that he had, but he is the new international prospect that no one thought was coming. But he's got asylum here in America, and we'll figure out what happened with him. Odds are good based on the rules of the game that he'll jerk around until next year, and then he'll sign. Because at age 22, he would have to be signed under prospect rules. At age 23, he would be a free agent. So they would let his birthday. So he will make more money if he lets his birthday pass. It's the same thing that was true of Shohei Ohtani, but Shohei Ohtani didn't wait for his birthday to pass. He decided, I'm going to give the Angels control of me for 6 years.
So that's a little unusual because he's 23 versus the 22 versus these guys normally defecting are how old?
Well, I mean, early on the ages were varied,
right?
But I mean, like for instance, Yuli Gurriel defected at 33, but you would also
Brave.
But he defected with his brother who was 18. Aroldis Chapman was like 21 years old. I'm trying to remember some of the ones that I know off the top of my head. It was varied. It was like whenever you got your chance. You know what I mean? And then there was a short period where you were allowed to come over under certain restrictions. And the way that it goes based on American law is that when you defect, you have to apply for citizenship to some other country. And that's why there's a delay. You can't apply directly for American citizenship. So they generally apply for Mexican citizenship unless that player has a specific tie to another country. And Preitas, his maternal grandmother is a Spaniard. So he'll probably apply to Spain because he's got a tie to it, which will speed up the process. And then you wait for that to come in. And then once that comes in, then you can apply for a visa to actually work here. Being here in a diplomatic community doesn't allow you to work. It just allows you to be.
I'm just wondering, these guys from Cuba, like he's going to be, say he's 23 next year. Does that say anything about how far away he is from the major leagues?
I think he's ready. I mean, the way I look at it, and I might be wrong, this is based on what people have told me, that like the highest level of Cuba's game and the highest level of the Japanese game is higher than AAA baseball. So it's like he's facing good competition on a day-to-day basis. It's not the other way around. There are some things that Cuba does different than than America. Like you ever notice how there's not a lot of really great Cuban pitchers that have defected?
Right.
You ever notice that? It's because basically they actually play almost every game as if it's a bullpen game. It's like you would pitch in sequence. Like if you were a good Cuban pitcher, you would pitch 3 innings, and someone else would come in for the next 3 innings. And that's just the way they do things. It allows them to play more games, pitch more often. And if you do know something about some of the Cubans that we've seen, like Livan Hernandez, whatever, they have very durable arms. The handful of pitchers that are Cuban, they don't generally. They're trained to pitch a lot. Is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Smaller bursts, but more often. It's a different mentality. But anyway, yeah, that's a little.
Yeah.
One of my niches in the fantasy world is that I actually do really like foreign baseball, and I do spend a lot of time watching that stuff. Partially because it's interesting to me, but partially because not a lot of people do, so it gives you a little foot in the door some places. But it's here Memorial Day, and we're going to talk about baseball stuff. I threw a few things out there. I did want to say hello to Eddie, Malpal, and if you have anything you want to say at the beginning before we get to the meat of the order, I guess I should check the chat room to see who's here. We got Mitch Harston is the only name that I'm sure of.
Mitchell, hi Mitchell.
It does say we have 2 people in the Facebook chat room.
What is Mitchell doing? I thought he's at a game.
I think he's listening. I do that a lot more than you think. Like I'll listen to a lot more shows than I show up to because I can listen in my car.
Is Mitchell at a Myrtle Beach game, or where's he at, or Virginia?
He lives in near Washington.
Oh, go to the Nationals game? They're on the road.
I don't know where he's at, but he just said he was going to a game. I don't know which game.
I think he did say it in one of our internal chats. He said what game he was going to, but I'm not going to look it up right away. So I'm going to get to the other stuff here.
Okay.
Let's get rolling here.
Yeah, I threw out a few questions to think about here. And the first question that I was going to ask you guys, kind of open-ended. I know this is new to Eddie, so I'm not going to call on you first. And Eddie, if you feel like speaking, just speak up. If you don't feel like speaking, don't worry about it. You can take a pass.
Okay.
What players have you completely changed your mind on based on the performance you see so far this year? I mean, we're at the point where historically we'll reevaluate our teams. And I'm not just talking about, like, I think he's a little better than I thought he was or a little worse than I thought he was. But guys that you were completely in on, that you're completely out on, or guys that you're completely out on that now you're completely in on. Anybody hit those categories? I know Malpal said before he had some things he wanted to say. Would you like to begin?
Sure. For this year, and I maybe because he didn't pitch last year, had a little false hope, but Eduardo Rodriguez has been a complete disaster, especially his last 5 starts. I mean, he's been awful. He's been like one of the worst pitchers in baseball. So
yeah, he wasn't a guy that I was really close on, but yeah, I heard he's not been good.
Right.
But you were confident in him going into the season?
Well, as I said, maybe I had some false hope because he was pretty solid in 19 and 18 and 20 he didn't play, and he had a decent start this year, and then he's fallen off the cliff here in the last month and a half, and he's not striking anyone out, gives up a ton of base runners, and I'm really down on him, and I don't really see anything that's
it's not like,
unless they're injuries or something that they're not talking about.
It's not like last year where you kind of wrote off almost everything Boston touched. There are pitchers in that staff like Eovaldi and Perez that are doing pretty well.
Right.
Anybody have an idea what's wrong with Eduardo Rodriguez? I mean, it's something I guess you could chalk up to lingering effects of the problem from last year.
Yeah, I'm wondering if just the lack of innings last year and really bad health, right? He just maybe hasn't recovered. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
I don't think it's COVID. He was hurt entering the season. He was hurt. He was on the injured list as the year started, but I don't know. I don't think it was because of COVID. Although because he really missed the whole season last year. And
he had a really serious case of COVID. I remember on my show doing a report, and I go through all the injuries. And late in September last year, there was a report that Edward Rodriguez was finally cleared just to walk. Like, he had the most serious case out there.
Right.
And so I don't know how he got more injured. It's basically recovering from that. And that's the reason
he
why
had dead arm. He was.
he did have the dead arm thing. Yeah, you're right.
So I don't know. I mean, I just don't. I know that he was back for most of the spring and he was completely fine. And then he got dead arm and he was out. He didn't start the season. I don't know what kind of injury he has, but I feel like there's been constant problems with him his whole career. There's been issues with like reliability as far as being healthy. But you know what? I have him on a couple of teams and I just keep putting him out there. I haven't really even noticed how bad he is until Malpal just brought him up. And because I'm too busy worrying about all my other bad players like Luis Castillo. Like, I'm just happy he's healthy. You know what I mean?
Obvious bad players, but we want to dwell on all the bad players. Make sure that we spread the misery around completely.
My other big disappointment, and maybe I had a fascination with him because I saw him play in college, is Keston Hira. Awful. I really had hopes. I think much of the fantasy industry had hopes. I think he was being drafted fairly.
Yeah, he was drafted fairly early.
Spot. And he's been awful.
I would like to say that I didn't believe in Hira, but I would be lying if I said that. But I don't own him anywhere. I never was able to draft him because everywhere I was at, like, I was thinking, like, he's the 5th best second baseman, and he should be drafted in the 7th round, and he was always going like in the 4th or the 5th round. You know, is a saving grace that other people grabbed him from me. And I actually don't think I think he's got significant problems, even with this, going down for a little bit.
Then the third
I grabbed
guy,
him for. Okay, go ahead.
I
was just gonna say that in my NL only league that I'm in, he got sent down to the minor leagues and somebody dropped him, and I just swooped up on him even though he was in the minors for a while. I mean, I feel like in that league you can barely even get a living body. Yeah. So I was like super stoked to find him available.
And I think you're correct in being happy about that. My comments were, it's like there's a big difference between drafting this guy in the 4th round and picking him off waivers. It's like, yeah, at that point, yeah, you pick him up off waivers. I would pick up almost everybody who is going to play this year.
He's always had a huge problem with strikeouts, and it hasn't really changed. It's always been like over 30% strikeout rate. He's been able to. I think that they might have just found a weakness with him, and if he doesn't choose to adjust to it, like to fix it, then he's going to be in this constant. He's just going to be in trouble constantly if he can't stop striking out so much. But okay, sorry, Malpal.
The truth is, Kessner is only in his 4th month of playing. He's played less than a year of baseball. It doesn't mean he'll never be good. He just probably won't be good this year. He
played in 2019. He played 84 games in 2019. Yeah.
Okay.
And my third guy and this is a little different guy. I don't know. He didn't have many expectations, but he was a young guy. He's a good minor league guy. I'm concerned about this guy being 25 years old and always injured, and that's Austin Hayes. I'm interested in what Ed has to say about Austin Hayes. He seems like he's always injured for a young player.
Yes.
And is that a concern? I mean, or is this guy really worth storing in a dynasty type league, or should we bring back our expectations a little?
I would curb your expectations. I would like to really see him succeed, but I just don't know.
Is that because of injuries, or you just think his skill set doesn't jump out at you like he's real athletic star material?
Mainly the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of like Nolan Reimold, always injured.
I was going to say about it seems when I'm looking for a player in the waiver wire, it seems like there's a lot of available players that have to be Baltimore Orioles, and my answer to is this guy going to be decent for me is the same answer you just gave, which is I don't know. There's
Right.
I think Mancini's proven himself, but outside of that, you got Mountcastle, you got who are some of these other guys? DJ Stewart. Even the guy that had a great year last year hasn't really been doing it this year. Anthony Santander. They bring up guys like Ryan McKenna and Pat Valleca, and this is how hard it is for me to name Orioles off the top of my head. But they're always available. They always have decent little stat lines. But you're saying as an Oriole fan, there's really not a lot there on the Orioles side to help you out.
Not in the majors, no.
Anybody that you're looking forward to? Well, we'll cover that later on. So those are your guys, Malpal.
Those are my
Ed,
duds, yeah.
Ed, if you want a moment to think about this, I'll turn to Andrea, see if she's got anybody.
I'm ready.
You ready?
Yeah.
Who are the guys that you've changed your mind completely on? It could be a good thing or a bad thing.
I've certainly been disappointed in Josh Bell and Kyle Schwarber of the Nationals.
Really?
They're a little bit better the last week or two, but I think the first month of the season was pretty bad. I mean, they're both just barely hitting above 200.
Yeah, I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, and Kyle Schwarber has a soft spot in my heart. But the truth is, when he went to, whether or not if he had stayed with the Cubs or gone to the Nationals, I think we kind of know who the guy is. He's a low batting average, 230-ish hitter who's going to probably hit 30 home runs and have a little difficulty versus lefties. I was a little impressed by the fact that his first 3 home runs were all walk-off home runs. It took him a while to get to those numbers, but it's like when he did hit, it was in important spots. But yeah, I could see being, it's like, so it's somebody like you just don't want anything to do with those guys nowadays. On Bell, I never really, that guy always scared me a little bit. I know he had a phenomenal 2019, but that was the only thing we'd ever seen from him, and it was above expectations. Do you have any feelings, Andrea, about Bell and or Schwarber?
I thought that Bell was going to be better at his new home. I really thought he was going to get better run support and stuff, but he's been out too injured. And he had a great year, and I think there were some concerns going in the season about Bell and Schwarber. We know that is he the one with the bad, he doesn't have a great batting average ever, I don't think. He's capable of hitting a good number of home runs, but just that whole team is really kind of disappointing. I will say that my opinions changed on Chris Bryant. I think that he's
finally one where we're happier about a player.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm happy about Chris Bryant, and I think that obviously anybody is happy about Vladdy. We knew the problem, so we knew that he was going to have to do something about his launch angle, or he wasn't going to hit very many home runs, no matter how hard he hit the ball. And so, he's a positive too that I've changed my mind on, because me, I'm never really that confident that a young player is going to be everything that everybody always is making them out to be. And just not yet, I just think it takes a while. So I have changed my mind on Vladimir Guerrero. I think he's definitely right up there as with some of these young, like Fernando Tatis. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is probably going to get drafted in the first round next year, I think. He deserves it. I do have a negative one in Freddie. I don't know if I've changed my opinion, though. It's kind of hard because I'm not a fan. I always thought that Freddie Freeman was like the most reliable player that just you were certain, like if you had to pick in the top 10, you had to pick the guy that you think is like the most stable, the most consistent. It would be Freddie Freeman. I guess more that I learned a lesson about the fact that even Freddie Freeman, his contact rate is the same, his walk rate is the same, his strikeout rate is the same, everything's the same except for his batting average on balls in play is super low, and obviously he's having some bad luck. So even great players can be really horrible for your fantasy team, even if even, if there's nothing wrong per se, or maybe he's just having a bad season, but he's still doing everything the same. So he's hitting like 230. This is like unheard of for him. Like
Yeah, the average is down.
Yeah. So, but Chris Bryant, I did, and Tyler Glass. Now I'm becoming more of a fan, and maybe that's biased because I never really liked him that much. I didn't think he was that. I didn't think he had enough pitches. I didn't think that he was going to stay healthy for a season. Now he's healthy, but even on top of that, he's been very good with like his pitch selection, and he's obviously got talent. I just hope he can stay healthy. I won't even bring up Luis Castillo because we talk about him every week.
Well, yeah. It's like we should have a moratorium on Luis Castillo's speech.
I know.
Until you have something good.
Yeah.
The thing about Freeman, I have Freeman in one league, and in that league, I haven't really noticed that he's been bad. I have noticed that he hasn't been as good as expected, and I think that a lot of that has to go with the fact that when I drafted him, in order to get Freeman, you'd have to draft him in the first 14,
the first
picks.
round.
Yeah, at the very end of the first round, you might be able to get him. And I think that a lot of the negative feeling that I have about Freeman is that it is clear that he's not the best first baseman because Vlad Guerrero is. And it's more how good Guerrero is for me than how bad Freeman is. And you might say that Freeman might have dropped to third considering the advances that Jose Abreu made last year sort of stuck this year. So that's the big disappointment is that Freeman probably isn't a first round pick. But if you picked him in the third round, the numbers you got, you would have been fine, don't you think?
I mean,
say no.
I don't think he was. I think he was a first round pick. I had to draft him in the first round to get him in any of my leagues that I have him in, and I do not think he's a first.
Yeah, I think
I don't know if he is. I mean, the season I think we should give. I'm going to give him a lot more leash than I would normal players, to get better. But like Charlie Blackmon, he's horrible and his whole team is horrible. So when a player's team is horrible on top of them being horrible, I don't know that you should have that much hope for a player on a horrible team that's doing bad. But like with Freeman, he's on Atlanta, so he's surrounded by very good hitters.
And what you're saying is good.
I was just say, how do you think? I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, and we're probably jumping ahead, but are we concerned about Marcell Ozuna not being in that lineup and how it may impact Freeman?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, there's the question. I mean, the Major League Baseball is not going to do anything for like 4 or 5 more days because he's on the injured reserve, and if they moved him to the restricted list today, then he would come off the restricted list on the injured reserve.
Probably. I don't think they're going to punish him until they find out what's happening to him legally.
That's the thing.
He's not even close to. I mean, he's on the DL for a long time anyway. So
yeah, he's got 6 weeks off, but he has to clear those 10 days. The truth is, there is a reasonable chance, fantasy baseball wise, I'm not talking moralistically, that this doesn't resolve until after the year ends, because there are ways that they can, fight any kind of any kind of like litigation or like reviews or whatever, and say it's got to be done a certain way. He's probably going to get 80 game suspension, or that's just what they do, and it doesn't even matter if you're guilty or not. They do it anyway, which is a bunch of bull, but they did it to Aroldis Chapman when he had a spat with his girlfriend. He didn't even get arrested, and they suspended him for domestic violence when he didn't go to jail or anything. And then I guess it really depends what the details of what actually happened. We know that he choked her.
It really doesn't.
Aroldis Chapman fired his gun into a wall.
No,
which is a pretty significant step.
He was out in his garage and he fired his gun in his garage. That's why he didn't go to jail, because you're allowed to fire your gun as long as you're not in a house with other people in the house. He can fire his gun in the garage. That's why he didn't go to jail. He didn't even get a ticket for that. That wasn't why he got suspended.
I just think that in most things in life, if you were to do something like something like have a fight, having a gun be near it aggravates what you've done.
He didn't break any laws.
He
didn't.
I don't think that's completely the
I can tell you that he
argument.
didn't get charged
that-
with anything. He
yeah,
didn't get a ticket. He didn't go to jail. He did
A
not get
person-
charged.
A person can do something that's morally wrong and something that should be disciplined, and it's still
You
not
don't get
be
to
against the law.
decide what. I just don't. Who
I
gets
don't
to
get to
decide what's?
either. Major League
Who
Baseball.
decides?
Major League
Should
Baseball.
Rob
matter of fact,
Manfred decide?
every company I've ever worked at, and I'm sure Major League Baseball has, they have a clause in there that says that if you do certain things that we think are beyond the pale as far as what the morality of somebody that works here should be, then we can let you go. So yeah, the Major League Baseball gets to decide, and they might take a stricter stance on domestic violence than you would or the average person would. Or
I just
you
I
always
just don't
hear
know if
stories-
having a gun and shooting a gun is the same thing as domestic violence to begin with.
Well,
I don't know
there was stuff before that it. But the point being, we don't know what's going to happen. I know this because I was actually, as a fan of foreign players, the last time somebody in Atlanta got accused at this level, that guy's career was over. It wasn't just suspension. It was like, you're done.
Jose
See you
Reyes.
later. No, the Atlanta Braves, Hector Oliveira.
What about Domingo Herman? He's playing right now.
But that's the Yankees. The Yankees have a different level. It's like you base somebody on what the Braves do. The last time they did this, the Braves said, see you later, you're over, and literally...
But Hector Oliveira was not thrown out by MLB. He was basically just discarded by ownership.
Yeah, by ownership.
Because he made his $72 million.
They ate the money to get rid of him because that's where the Atlanta Braves stood in their interpretation of moral righteousness to be a Brave.
Right, and he got traded to the Padres, and they just never showed up.
He got traded for like a minute in the offseason to the Dodgers. Never played for them, but he wound up being like his money was paid by 4 different clubs.
Yeah, because he got traded to the Padres, I think, as part of the Upton deal.
And then he was in a Kemp deal.
And then he got traded to the Dodgers in the Kemp deal. He's like the useful idiot, in his contract.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Like, I don't know where they're going to go, but it's like we knew he was going to be out for 6 weeks. That's a certainty, right? It might be more than that. It might be the rest of the season. It might be for the rest of his career. It might be nothing beyond the injury until next year. We don't know at this point, and I don't think we're going to find out until the 10 days of his injured reserve thing runs out, because he's on the injured reserve, and any move they make today would put a halt on that. And it just would be something that if the Braves decided they wanted him to play for him again, it would be sort of insult to injury for them to give him an 80-game suspension, and then when he comes back from 80-game suspension, he has to serve 6 more days on the injured reserve to fill out his 10 days.
They have him. I don't know if you can get fired for the domestic thing, but they owe him a 4-year contract that he just signed this year in February. He doesn't even. I mean, there's a team option in 2025, but I think the suspension is the punishment. I don't know how much they can go further than that, or if I do know that the agreement involves like some kind of, they could send them to treatment, they could send them to counseling, they could send them to these things. But once you pay, I'm paying the price 80 games, whatever it is, whatever MLB decides it is, then can the team punish you on top of that by saying, we're not going to pay you anymore? I think that in baseball, it's not the same as football, where you are protected by the Players Association, and you serve your sentence or whatever. That's all they could do.
There was an article in The Athletic that asked that question, and basically, I didn't get to read all of it. I only got to read through the preview, but the gist of what I got was, theoretically, they could sue. Like, they were thinking about suing Alex Rodriguez years ago to void the contract, but they decided against it. Remember, the Yankees did that? It's like, you took these PEDs, that's a violation of our moral clause. We're going to sue you to break the contract. The Braves could sue Marcell Ozuna to say that what he's done is so far beyond the thing that the contract is null and void, but they probably won't, because they would probably lose that suit, because too many other baseball teams have chosen not to do that. So there's sort of a precedent being that's been there. It's like, as of this point, even the story of Hector Oliveira being aside, nobody has actually lost money in Major League Baseball for hitting his partner.
No, because I don't think they can.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's something for the court to decide whether the contract under the was actually broken, but they've never done it before, and it'd be But I think the other thing that makes a big difference is whether the wife presses charges or not. Usually,
She's not going to.
And that takes back a lot of the stuff. That's one of the biggest reasons why Aroldis Chapman wasn't arrested is because the wife said don't do it. That's a big deal on a lot of these cases. If the wife, and they have a weird relationship.
That is not true.
Well, if the wife had pressed charges, he would have been arrested. He might not have been convicted.
You don't press charges like that. No, they didn't have anything to take him to jail for, just because they get into it.
It's like the definition of battery is putting somebody into a situation where they're scared for their own safety. The definition of assault is touching that's unwanted. In that situation, she was both assaulted. But
it wasn't her house. It was his house, so that she could have left. She could have went home. I guess.
Those things are there. It's like those things are there, but they usually leave it in situations that aren't too bad, especially among famous people up to the wife, the other person to some extent. But that's going to get off the point. The truth is that does make a difference in how it'll play out for Marcell Ozuna, and they have a weird relationship when it comes to domestic violence, as everyone probably heard. She was arrested for domestic violence a year ago against him.
Hey, Can I throw out a player that I think?
Yeah. We want to get back to that.
Interesting guy for like drafting next year is Ryan McMahon, the new Colorado
go-to guy,
because of Coors Field, and he's kind of showing some good power this year. Is he going to elevate and be a top 3 or 4 round pick next year? Is he the new Rocky, or is he just
under the question that we were talking about to start out, like who we changed our minds about? Ryan McMahon almost made that for me. The only difference was I didn't see it as a 180. I thought he was going to be a decent player, but it turns out he's actually a very good player. And I do think that the Rockies are always going to be people target, whether they deserve it or not. If Story is gone, I think his contract's up, right? It's not just the rumor of trades at the end of the year. Am I wrong about that? I don't know. Anyone know? Well,
on McMahon, he seems like he's too young to have the.
No, I'm thinking about Story. We're like saying who would he be?
Yeah. Okay.
We're saying like who would he be behind on the pecking order in Colorado? Nolan Arenado's gone. Blackman's a shell of what he once was. The rest of the team is okay at best, or very young. So the only guy
that's why I think he's interesting, because there's always a Rocky that's gonna be a Rocky, right?
Yeah.
And
the only guy he'd be behind would be Story. Maybe he's the guy. That's interesting. That's an interesting thing to point out, Mal.
Yeah, I'll be watching to see how he finishes the year. I mean, we're not even halfway through, but is he gonna be the next guy that people are gonna say, I want those 35 Rocky home runs? Even though he might not be a very good player.
I know that we love Rocky so much that in many leagues, people like me drafted Elias Nunez or Dom Nunez or Elias Diaz, and they're not good catchers. They're not good hitters. Yeah. That's the lure that the Rocky world brings to you. And Ryan McMahon is actually pretty decent, don't you think?
Well, he was a good prospect. He was a highly regarded prospect. So it seems like he might have that, that it factor.
I want to bring up the two guys that I'm 180 degrees different on, and you guys can grill me on these as you say. The first guy that comes to mind is I was completely out on Andrew Benintendi, and he was horrible for the first weeks of the season, but he changed his batting stance on April 24th, and since then he's been hitting like 370 with decent eye and whatever. I'm not going to say he's he's a first round pick or anything, or he's even as good as we once thought he was, but he's definitely a top 100 player now in my mind. Have you guys seen that in Andrew Benintendi?
So he just changed his batting stance one day and he was a better hitter?
That's the crazy thing. Is that he did change his batting stance. And so it's one thing, like if a person just has a bunch of hits, you're like, well, it could be a fluke. But he actually consciously changed something and it worked for him. I can't discount that fact that he consciously changed something.
Well,
how do you know
he just screams Alex Gordon to me without speed and Gordon.
I read it in a report from Jeffrey Zimmerman.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Benintendi because I don't have him. Lenny would be one to talk to about him.
No, Lenny had him, and I was always like, "No, he's nuts. Who was the guy before the season? There was a guy like, I'll take this guy over Benintendi, and Mitch Haniger. Mitch Haniger over Benintendi. It's like that late always. Mitch Haniger. Mitch Haniger's been good. He's actually better than Benintendi, but both are good. Here's the other player that I've taken a 180 on, and it's kind of a weird one. It's Shohei Ohtani. 2 years ago, if you had asked me about Ohtani, I would say to you, I wish he would give up hitting and just be the pitcher he could be. Right? Today, I feel exactly the opposite. I wish he would give up pitching and just be the hitter that he could be. What do you guys think of that?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I said this before the year, and I got a little heat in the chat room. I think Ohtani excelling at both pitcher and hitting could be the most exciting thing we've seen in baseball in a decade. And I think I might be close to being right. But
when did you say that?
It was early in the spring. I didn't say he would. I think it would if he could, because everyone was saying, like Douglas was saying, pick one or the other. And I was saying, like, I'd like to see him continue to try both, because I think it would just be exciting if he was able to succeed.
Oh, I think it'd be exciting too. I think that the nature of being a full-time pitcher is too demanding. But if he was a full-time hitter who pitched on occasion, I think he could pull that off. Because that was the whole reason behind it was like gearing him up to throw and whatever, and it was the reason behind it. For the first couple of years, they were giving him the day off before the pitching outing and the day off after the pitching outing. It's like now he pitches once a week. They have a 6-man rotation. He's sort of the extra guy. I don't know if he can pull it off for the duration of the thing. Everyone did notice that his fastball is off like 4.5 miles an hour his last outing as a pitcher. But if he were a full-time hitter who pitched, say, 10 games a year, maybe another 4 in relief, and added to your totals as a fantasy player another 100 strikeouts, I think that could work out, a win or two. But I don't know if anybody could really do the rigors of 162 games on both ends, and nothing in Ohtani's recent past has given us any indication that he could pull that off for an entire year.
You know what I'd love to see him do? I think this would be so cool. So he's a DH, right? It's like 8th inning, he hits the game-winning or the go-ahead home run as a DH, right? So it's now 5-4 ball game. He circles the bases. And as soon as he's done, he grabs his glove and he runs to the bullpen, warms up, and he comes out and gets the save. Can you do that?
Yeah, you'd forfeit the DH under the rules of the DH, but you could do that.
Who cares? Yeah, but he's the pitcher. So who cares? I mean, you can play all sorts of guys. I just think he has that much excitement. I'm kind of surprised, but I think it's just for baseball, I think it'd be great because the game can get kind of boring,
No, I think that there is a lot of excitement there. Last week, I talked about the fact that outside of baseball, 60% of my trivia grouping didn't know who Shohei Ohtani was. It's like he could be. I mean, I guess this is a horrible job of marketing Los Angeles Angels players, but there's no reason why this guy shouldn't be everywhere. And everything I heard about him off the field, he's a decent, nice guy too. It's like why not make Trout and Ohtani the focus of baseball? Admittedly, Trout is injured. So that's it. Those are my two guys. I didn't really have a negative guy but those are my two positive guys. Like
there's a lot of negative this year.
Yeah, there is a lot of negative. A lot of negative. But one thing that wasn't so negative, and we'll move on to the next thing, is Alek Manoah debuted last week, and in my Fab League, $1,000 Fab League, he went for $515. I read that he averaged on NFBC main events going at around 360. It's like, did you guys bid on him, get him anywhere? Huh?
I did not bid
Yeah.
on him because I didn't even try to bid on him.
When there's something like that, I'll always like throw like a $50 bid just to make sure that everybody's not sleeping. I'm not going to get him, but I'm putting $50 out there so that nobody gets him for a you know.
Is that in mixed league? That's the average price.
That's mixed. That's NFBC main events. The average price was, I think it was like 358. It was right around 360. The average runner up was like 272.
Which player are you now talking about?
Alek Manoah is the pitcher for the Blue Jays, who had a very nice outing with him, and I'm on board that he's going to be pretty good. I don't know if he's half your fab budget good, but he's going to be pretty good. But the question I had was, sorry, Andrea took a deep breath.
No, I'm just listening. I don't know how good he's gonna be. Nobody does. That's the thing. He's not even like this guy. He's had a couple innings. He was great in spring. I'll give him that. He was great in spring, and that's what made me notice him. But anybody, I don't think it's a mistake to spend $500 on him, because that's you know what you need on your team right now. And if you have $1,000, I don't know if 500 is like completely crazy, but I wouldn't do it. I think he's going to be a decent pitcher, but I just find it, you can't be sure yet because he's only 23.
You can't be sure. That's true. But the two things I want to say about that is, one is like, I've spent a lot of fab in that league, but this year, because there's been so many injuries, fab has been really, really like active every week, because like 8 out of 10 teams need to replace at least one starting player, not just a bench guy, because you're losing so many guys. And so I have in that 1,000 league, I have $364 left, and I have the 6th most money. That's how much fab has been flying around, because you just sort of have to. Every week I go, I'm going to take this week off, and then I get 4 injuries and I don't have enough pitchers, right? The other thing about Manoah is, the other thing about the pitching is this, that they give your fab for the reason for your fab is to cover some injuries and stuff, but it gives you the opportunity to get one good player, and it behooves you as a fantasy player to stake your claim at least one time on one guy. Otherwise, it's like everyone else is having an extra draft pick over you, And so you could choose Manoah. There's good reasons to choose Manoah, but the question I had is, are there other people coming that you would choose to go, this is the guy I'm going to throw a third of my budget at. This is the guy I know that I want. I'm going to take my stand on somebody this year. Is there somebody like that?
No.
I think the guy that might fetch money, I'm not sure if it'd be worth it, is a guy like Bruhan. We've talked about him several times. And but I think a lot of the so-called future stars are still a year away. Your Julio Rodriguez and your Grayson Rodriguez, those type of guys. They're the next big group of studs coming up, but I don't see them coming up this year.
Let me go through it a different way then. There's a number of guys that I see that are coming up, and you guys tell me, let's say everybody has $500 worth of fab. How much would you fab for, this Wander Franco?
0.
That's an answer?
Yeah.
Is there anyone else?
It would depend on when he's up. Like, are we talking like right now, or are we talking July?
Yeah, let's say July 1st. July, 1 month away. And you're bidding that day.
What about Vidal Brujan?
I'd go higher than 0.
I gotta go higher than 0 too. But her point being is that these guys aren't worth.
I'll pass on them.
You'll pass. You brought up Vidal Brujan. How much would, if Vidal Brujan on January 1st? How much would you fab? You got $500.
January 1st? No, how about like?
Sorry, July 1st. A 1 month of Vidal.
Okay, I would spend.
This is a year
$25 out of 500 probably.
Ed,
not a lot.
Got an opinion?
Not on this player, no.
But you see, I would change my mind if I was like one shortstop away from winning my league, and I had $500 left, and it's July 1st, and I need to do something, and there's no shortstops. I would probably spend more money. But like Malpal says, it kind of depends on the timing and that. But all else being equal, I would probably spend like maybe $30 or.
Well, yeah, you're getting to where I'm coming from with this question. Is like I feel compelled that I really need to do this somewhere because in that 15-team league, I lost my second round pick. Sorry, I lost my third round pick and my fourth round pick with Luis Robert and Marcelo Zuna. Right? I feel that I was at 100 points going into this week. I'm down to 90. I'm still in fifth place. I could play this thing, but I need somebody to make up that slack. I could have survived one of them, but probably not two. So I'm looking at it and going, you know, if someone like Elliot Ramos came up, I would probably spend all but $50 to get him. I think that when Jaron Duran comes up, I would spend a lot of money to get him because it sort of fits that need. Yeah. Of course, you'd spend a lot less if you didn't need the player. If everything was wonderful and you didn't need the player, but I'm assuming that this would be in a situation where it would help you at some level, you know. But there's nobody in this grouping that's gonna. Bobby Witt Jr. No.
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 How about the only pitcher that I'm really looking forward to is Jackson Kowar. How about him?
In a mixed league, I'd probably
I like him.
$25 if you needed a pitcher. But with that, you know, you get a guy like Jackson Kowar, and you're in contention. He could come up and lay an egg, right? Like real easy. Or he could come up and be a phenom for 5 starts before he starts regressing. That's the rookie pitchers. Boy, you gotta have a backup plan, I think. If you go after these guys.
What if we're talking about a situation where I'm not a rookie? In the NFC, the way the league works is that in your league, you can only pick up players that were either drafted or have played baseball this year. So like in my particular league, right now, I could not, if I wanted to, bid on Luis Severino. July 1st comes around. He's supposed to be back July 10th or whatever. Would you bid more on a Luis Severino type?
Yes.
And how much would you bid on Luis Severino?
A lot more, dude. A lot.
Out of 500, July 1st, let's say July 15th for him because that's where he'll be.
I would spend $400 on him if I needed a pitcher.
That's a big difference philosophically. Huge difference.
No question, but you got to think, how long is fantasy baseball? Lenny's idea is, why would you hold on to fab money? What are you holding on to it for? Like when players...
A minute ago, we were holding it for Vidal Burhan and holding it for Wander Franco. But yeah, you got to stake your play your flag somewhere. I believe that too.
Well, there's no question I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't spend all your fab money at one time or whatever. But I do think you need to hold on to some of it, even if Lenny will say, well, all the good rookies come up, once they're all up, then what? What are you waiting for? There's not like going to be some great impact player, but I definitely know that there's injuries coming at the end of the year. There's always somebody getting called up, but Severino is a game changer, and I would spend a lot of money on him, way more than any prospect by far.
I'd spend at least $250.
Huh? Sorry. Can you repeat yourself,
I would
Eddie?
spend at least $250 on
about
him.
half. Yeah, that's what people mostly say is a big bid. Half your wad is a big bid. Mel, do you have something to say?
I said, what about a guy like, and this seems weird, like a guy like Bradley Zimmer? The guy's super fast. He's going to play, it looks like, every day now. And he's got some appeal in at least one category where he can dominate. What's a guy like that go for? Anything?
I think he's a buck player. If you want him, you might go 2 or 3.
Wait, are we talking? Who did you say? Bradley Zimmer?
Yeah,
Bradley Zimmer.
I think of him in the same category. Like I'd rather have Billy Hamilton. I'd probably rather have a playing Khalil Lee. I'm trying to think of other guys that just steal.
But okay, and what do you said he'd go for a buck or two? You'd bet a buck or two. What do you think he'll go for?
I think that I don't think it'll be much. I really don't. The
Okay.
fact he's playing every day. This is the other thing is like I would look at him. I have enough crummy outfielders now that I'm not really jonesing for somebody, and I don't mean it as a total insult. It's like he would have to replace, like
Where is he playing every day? How is he getting in the lineup?
That's the question. Is I don't believe anybody is an everyday player in Cleveland except for Jose Ramirez, and the one guy that I did bid on, who I think is an everyday player, there is actually Harold Ramirez, who I didn't get.
But I don't know where Bradley Zimmer's playing. When you say he's going to get playing time, he was called up to replace who?
Jordan Leplow.
Okay.
He is terrible against right-handed hitting. So Zimmer might not play he probably won't play against lefties.
Cesar Hernandez hit 2 home runs today. Okay.
First time in his career, 2 home runs. So did Patrick Wisdom. Pick him up.
I have.
And only. I'm a Cub fan, so that's just a Cub thing. But yeah, you have those guys that the one guy I bring it to. I forgot to mention this guy because this is the guy that's going to be on the block this week, and he is a rookie. But what is your feeling about Edward Olivares? His first game was on Sunday, so he wasn't draftable this Sunday. He'll be draftable next Sunday in weekly fab leagues. You have any opinion on Edward Olivares?
Well,
I take Bradley Zimmer over Olivares because Zimmer can dominate a category. There's that
is he going to get play? Where's he going to play?
Who, Olivares? Well, first off, there's a thought that Jorge Soler is going to go to the IL and they would take that spot. But even without that, you have three. You have a very unproven third baseman in the form of God, who's that guy's name? But anyway, you have 2 outfielders that are hitting fairly poorly in Michael Taylor and Hunter Dozier. Hunter Dozier's hitting 143. Michael Taylor's hitting 159. It's not like they don't have the space. Benintendi's got his spot, and they brought up. God, I can't remember the name. Does anyone know who plays third base for the Royals right this second?
Kelvin Gutierrez.
Kelvin Gutierrez. Like, he's not a guy that they're married to either, so they could theoretically move Dozier to third base and give him space that way. I don't think you call up a prospect of any magnitude to ride the pine.
Right.
So I think the worst case scenario he is going to be like an Almeida Diaz type where he just finds time filling in here and there. Worst case scenario, best case scenario, he's actually the starter and one of those guys falls to the bench, or they demote Kelvin Gutierrez.
Okay, let me say what they did. This guy is hitting. He's already hit 5 home runs and 7 stolen bases in
20 games.
In 20 games in AAA this season, and he's batting .395. So that's valuable. And if he could do that at the major leagues, we'll see. He's 25 years old. He's been to the majors one time before in 2020. He was up for 101 plate appearances, and he hit 3 home runs, and he didn't steal any bases, but he did get 10.
He hit like 240, which I consider not great, but that's holding your own at the major league level in my mind. You know, he's not. He wasn't a bomb.
He's DHing tonight.
Did he do anything? I know his first game he was 2 for 4 with a double. Has he done anything interesting? He didn't
hit lefties very good last year.
So would you bid on this guy, Fab, this week? And if you would, how much out of 500?
A couple dollars.
I bet he's going to go for like 180. I'm not bidding on him. I don't have the money to do it, but I bet he's going to go for 100 plus.
I'll pass on him.
Okay. I think he's an interesting player because of what he did. Like what you said about Bradley Zimmer, he's going to get as a rookie because he can steal bases. His absolute worst case scenario isn't as bad as some players. Doesn't mean he can't be bad. Just that if you have a bad player like Jerison Profar hasn't been hitting that well, but he stole 9 bases, and that makes up for a lot from our perspective as fantasy players. Right?
Yeah.
So he could be that kind of player on the worst case scenario. But you guys aren't really psyched about it. The other player that's coming, veteran player, you love Luis Severino. How do you feel about Chris Sale?
I don't think he's coming back anytime soon.
Yeah, that it was probably you're probably looking for him for like August. True, easily.
I mean, where is he on his supposed progress?
He just started throwing off a flat ground. He's not close to coming back yet.
Because he had held back. He had a stiff neck and cova and everything else that people are getting. So I think I bid on him, but with minimal interest.
All right, well, we'll move on to the next thing, which I was talking about. It seems like you guys really like talking about how much people are disappointed this year. The last question of the night is, do you have anybody on your team you're so disappointed in that you want to cut, but you just can't do it for some reason? Who are these people?
I got a whole load.
Yeah,
Eduardo Rodriguez, I may cut. He's in the last year of a contract in my AL league.
so why? What's stopping you from cutting him? Would be the follow up to almost any of those names.
Couple things. It's an AL 12-team league, so I'm kind of waiting for McCullers to come off the DL. I'm trying to trade Rodriguez to people from Boston. No takers, which says a lot. And we have an innings pitch of 850, so I kind of need him to log some innings while I'm waiting to get McCullers back. But at that point, I may cut him, which kind of hurts. I have a lot of hope for him.
I want to throw out a name real quick because Matt Hooper is out in the chat room and he said the name that I brought up, which I noticed, is Francisco Lindor. God, I wish I could cut him. I've been trying to trade him, and I literally have not got an offer. I would take any offer that came to me where it included a player that I would not immediately cut. You know what I mean? Like if you gave me just like a halfway decent closer like Jake Diekman, I would take it. But I can't cut him because I know that it's that worry, that sunk cost issue. Like I worry that I cut him and I do believe that Lindor is better than he is today, but I don't know how much better he is. But I don't want to get beat by somebody picking up Lindor off the waiver wire. If that league had fab money, I might do it.
But see, that's not really sunk cost because you still believe that he is a good enough player to hold on to, that he will be better in the last couple months of the season than a lot of players would be in the full season.
I can't really imagine myself. He's been riding the bench for quite a while in that league because of the players in that spot. I guess now that Ty France has first base eligibility, I could theoretically see playing France at quarter infield and Lindor at middle infield, but I don't know. I don't know what it would be that would bring me to play him. Like I guess he would have to. I mean, you would have to put together a good string of 2 weeks before I'd be excited to be the guy that has Francisco Lindor on a roster. And to put it another way, I'm in a 12-team league where absolutely nobody's excited to have him. Nobody even wants to have a trade talk about a guy. Partially because there's a number of decent shortstops that you don't really need to do that. There's nobody really desperate.
Ed, who would you cut who do you want to cut but you don't have it in you?
Right now, I don't have anybody that I don't want to cut.
You're the one guy in the fantasy world that loves every player on his team. We are glad to have you. We feel honored.
I'm in first place this year for the first time in 20 years.
There you go.
No, that's good. There is that. You can be happy.
I love it.
We should listen. No, it's unfortunate that in every league, there's only one guy in first place. So there's one happy guy like Ed Heckman, and everybody else is miserable like me. I mean, I'm in first place in 2 of 4 leagues that I'm in, and I had such a miserable week last week with those injuries that I literally walked away from baseball for 3 days. I said I can't. Just watching the game makes me sad. I'm going to go watch a movie with my evening. And I believe it's a good thing to do, once in a while. It's a long season. If it's not bringing you joy in the moment, when I went back to start watching games today, I was enjoying it again, even though everybody on my team is injured, and one of my guys beat his wife.
Well, I do have 4 pitchers on my team I'm ecstatic about. One of them is Trevor Bauer. Another is Jack Flaherty. I drafted Josh Hader. And I picked up Liam Hendricks in a trade. I had Alex Baду, and when Badu was hot, somebody
so
offered
smart.
me Hendricks.
That was so smart, dude. Cheers to you for that one.
Purdue homered today. I still
He's
think
been horrible. I don't care if he homered today or tomorrow.
Well, actually, if you look at his numbers, he's been good. He just hasn't played. But that's going to be his role. Oh, over the last 3 weeks, he's like 6 for 12 with 3 home runs and 2 stolen bases. But the problem is only 12 at bats and a bunch of walks. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
But the truth is, would he be worse if he's played all the time? Maybe. But he has been. Yeah, I still think he deserves more than what Detroit's giving him. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I cut him in all my leagues, and I was a big fan of him. But when I look at his stats, I'm thinking like last 14, and he's hitting 630 with a 700 on base percentage.
Wait, Akil Baddoo is who we're talking about?
Yeah.
In the last 21 days, he's hit 0 home runs.
Last 14 days. Well, he's got stolen bases, like 3 stolen bases.
He doesn't have any home runs in the last month.
He had a home run today.
Okay, I'm talking about in before today. He didn't have any home runs for the last 3 weeks, at least.
What was his on base percentage?
Okay, his on base percentage for the last 14 days is .478.
That's not bad.
Not at all. That's great. That's a great on base percentage.
That's what I'm saying is that he's been playing reasonably well. He just hasn't been playing. That's my point on Baddoo. And that was the thing that I was worried about when he came out. He came out blazing. And then he got too into himself and he stopped taking walks. And I said, if he, we need him to get back to what he does. And what he does is he took the one skill you could actually see in his minor league thing is that he should be about a 10% walker, maybe a 9.5% walker. And he stopped doing that. The walks are back. And that's the great thing about him. And he is better than Jacob B. Jones and Victor Reyes. Because the truth is 3 out of the 4 of us here are better than Jacob B. Jones and Victor Reyes. I'm not going to say which one isn't, because it's me. Anyway, I want to bring up one name because Mitch had said in his answers, and if we want to discuss this one guy, the one guy that he'd like to cut, and I don't really believe this, is Juan Soto. Like, I mean, I understand him being a great disappointment, but Juan Soto is a thing. What do you guys think about Juan Soto?
Well, I drafted him number 1 last year, and he was great. So he was definitely gone by the time I drafted this year. So I'm glad I didn't get him.
Yeah, sometimes it just works out well for you. Last year, 2 years ago, I did great because Christian Yelich fell to pick number 11. Sometimes the world works in your favor. There are a lot of bad players that I would have picked this year that I didn't.
I mean,
I don't think there's. Go ahead, Mal.
Andrew.
No, please.
I was just going to say, it seems like there's quite a few of these guys. I know, like Josh Bell, Soto. These guys all missed at least 2 weeks at the beginning of the year because they were in. I don't know if they had COVID, but they were in the COVID, at least in the COVID protocol.
The Nationals did have that problem.
Is that an issue? Is that causing this? I mean, we don't know. I'm just throwing it out.
I don't know what's so bad about him. He's not even hitting that bad.
He's not, but they're talking. He's not hitting for the power.
Yeah, I think cutting him is drastic, but he's a guy that he's a guy that's not too far off the idea of Lindor, where you just want him on your bench for a little bit.
Well, I think he's just aggravated because he was like the number 1 pick in many leagues, and he really is not doing good. He's okay, and he's 267,
he's pissed off.
4 home runs, and that's there's 1,000 guys better than that.
I read this crazy theory on the internet on Twitter that they believe that Juan Soto and Vlad Guerrero went to a Chinese restaurant and they touched the boot at the same time and they switched bodies.
Right.
Do you think that could be the case?
It could be.
I think that Juan Soto has a shoulder strain. I know he's pissed off about the way he's hitting, but he still is better than a lot of other players.
And he's not terrible, but
I don't know why anybody would cut him.
Yeah, it seems a little drastic on the thing. I did put. I went through on this question. I went through and looked for guys that were drafted in the top 100 picks who have been cut by 20% or more, to throw a couple other names out there. But some of these names we already got to. We talked about Castanera. We decided we weren't going to talk about Luis Castillo. The only other two names on there is like, how do you feel about Sixto Sanchez? I mean, you drafted him, you're holding him, and he's not playing, and he may not play.
Okay. Can I go first? Because I have him. Before this, and Antonio's here and George is here, and we had this. George and I both took over teams in this NL Only Dynasty League, and I was so excited because I got Sixto Sanchez for like $1 or $2. We did a snake draft for our 3 players. We got to pick 3 keepers from the teams that were joining the NL Only Keeper League. Anyway, we each got 3 players in a snake draft style. I got Sixto Sanchez, and I am having a hard time. I'm not cutting him now because he is going to be back up in June, right? Sometime in June, they say. But I am not a fan of waiting all year for him at all. But the only reason I haven't cut him yet is because this league is very, it's an NL.
It's NL only, yeah.
That's all that needs to be said about that. But I'm keeping him. But every day I'm like, oh, you're just bugging the shit out of me, just sitting there on my bench all the time. You're bugging me. But there's not a lot of guys to pick up either. So
are you bothered by the fact that like the Miami has the capacity to like bring up a guy like Poteet, and he's like, well, he's good too. Maybe Sanchez will be longer. You're just happy all across the board. All right.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not mad at the fact that they brought Poteet up because Sixto is not healthy.
He's not healthy?
No, he's not. He's not healthy. He's not playing in AAA in games.
I was not that aware of it. I just put the name on the list, but I thought he was playing by now.
No, he's just throwing. He's like throwing bullpens and stuff, but he's not participating in AAA at all.
That's very good to know. Anyone else?
Andrea told me to pick up Poteet, so I did.
You did?
Yeah. And I have him in the lineup this coming week against Pittsburgh, but he didn't do me any good last week.
Well, he pitched okay. It was an average outing. He wasn't like he was beat up, right? He was like 5 innings, 3 runs.
I like him because Miami has a great ballpark for pitchers, and he was looking. I mean, all I have to go off is the same numbers that you guys have to go off of. Just that I love Miami ballpark. I think their pitching is good this year.
Like them.
So you take a chance on whoever, but I took chances. I have Taylor Widener on my team, Logan Webb on my team, Poteet is on my team now. But I have a problem when we talked about who do you have on your team that you wish you could drop. My problem is dropping players all the time and then regretting it. I don't really have the problem of like not being able to drop somebody. Although, I'm frustrated with some players. Eventually I drop them. Like I dropped Lourdes Gurriel, and he is now hitting, of course.
I did that too.
Good. I'm glad I'm not alone.
I mean, I like Lourdes Gurriel. I was trying to get to the one thing about the dropping is like sometimes you really should drop these guys. Like the weekend after Luis Robert got injured, I dropped him because he's going to be gone for 12 to 16 weeks. When you get a month later, and it's in a league where I don't have unlimited spots. Right. Like you can't be completely married to everybody on your team. I'm not saying this justifies dropping Juan Soto, but it might justify in some situations dropping a guy like Sixto Sanchez who's not even playing yet. But there are times when you should say, yes, we drop these people. We just haven't gotten to that because those guys are generally so injured they're not that interesting. Like, would you drop Marcell Ozuna if you had him on your roster
right now?
Right now.
Well, lucky for everybody in this conversation, unless your team doesn't have an IL spot for this guy, then you have to already, you have to make a decision. But most leagues that I'm in, they have unlimited injury spots. So you wouldn't really have to make that decision for another couple weeks.
I've never played a game that has limited, but I have ones that have lots of spots, and I have ones that have none. But the truth is, I always sort of need those spots. And yeah, I guess how many players are better than, like, in one league, I really have 2 injury spots, and so the 3 guys that I have to choose from, who are you gonna do? Just ride on your bench, maybe. You have Mike Trout, Corey Seager, Marcell Ozuna.
Oh, I think it's obvious, dude, what you do in that case. Well, I don't know. Is Corey Seager out for a long time?
He's got about another 3 weeks.
Mike Trout is not droppable, and
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're in a situation this year where you could have a lot of really good players that are hurt, because there's a lot of really good players on the thing. Yeah, I think that with Ozuna, my answer is, I think you should wait a week to see how this other thing plays out. But if it plays out to the negative for him playing, he's definitely droppable. That's the way I'm playing as a person who has Ozuna on 2 teams' rosters.
I don't have him on any team, so.
I put Ozuna on the trade block in a dynasty league, and I'm kind of curious what the interest is.
I would do the same thing just to see. That's clever.
Yeah, my best trade offer so far is Leotis Taveras. So at that level, I'm just going to keep him. I was hoping for someone like little better than a guy hitting 080.
Yeah, that's a little light, but I still think that Leotis Taveras is one of those stolen base first guys, and he's young enough that I don't think that the book is closed on him.
No, but on this particular team I already got Roman Quinn and Miles Straw. I got enough of those guys. Yeah.
I like Oliveira's better than those guys.
Quinn is done for the season.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying, though? It's like these guys who can't steal.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a pitcher on my staff that just frustrates the heck out of me. If I don't start him, he wins. If I start him, he gets blasted. Do you have anybody like that?
Adam Wainwright?
No, Wade Miley.
Yeah.
He pitched a no-hitter. He was on my bench. He pitched today. He was on my bench.
I just drop my players and then they hit, so at least you have them on your bench still.
Yeah, I'm not going to drop them.
Is this is it a head-to-head point or a category 5x5 league?
5x5 roto.
I think. What I do in those, I either commit to the player or not, and for a good length of time, because it's impossible to know for a fringe pitcher like Miley. If you have him, trying to guess when he's going to be good is impossible. So you either live or die by him. You either go with him and accept the negatives, or you sit him and accept the fact what you're talking about is he's going to do good and you're going to feel terrible for not starting him. Because how do you know when to start him?
I know.
Wainwright.
Did you start
him today? I fortunately
today?
have 6 good starting pitchers and 3 excellent relief pitchers. So
if I wouldn't lose any sleep, I think you pick your best 9, and he's gonna throw a good game. But you know what Wade Miley is over 162 game season. He's a $2 pitcher. So
Did you start Wade Miley today?
No, I didn't.
And what was your why did you not start him today? Just curious.
Well, because of the 6 starting pitchers,
You had better options?
Start.
So you had all 6 of your starting pitchers going today, or
no? I have
it's a weekly lineup.
Bauer and Flaherty going against each other today.
You have a weekly lineup then,
right?
So you chose another pitcher over him, probably based on matchup, I would say, right?
Yeah, I chose Poteet because he's going against the Pirates.
Exactly. That's
I think
why
all of us would have done the same thing.
I feel like if your reasoning is sound, and even if the outcome isn't what you wanted it to be, in this case, it seems like you made the right decision, because probably not, 8 times out of 10, the Pirates are going to lose. So,
and I think
I agree
Miley
with that.
pitches later this week against the Cardinals, so I really wasn't excited about him pitching against St. Louis.
Right. I understand.
I would never have I'd be really hesitant to throw a guy like Miley in a 2-start week. That could just sink you.
I have him in case somebody gets hurt.
I tend to like take a lot of chances on the 2-start guys because the hardest thing to catch up in Roto is the strikeouts, and just getting extra games helps. You know, it's like unless I have some reason to think that this guy is going to be absolutely no good in a game the second time around, I'm going to start all my 2-start pitchers because if I thought the pitcher was bad, I wouldn't have him on my roster.
I would say this: if it's a strikeout pitcher and you're in that situation, yes, but Miley's not really a strikeout.
No, he's not a strikeout.
But in a 2-start week, he could very easily have 13 strikeouts.
What about Robbie Ray? He's a strikeout pitcher. I pitched him.
And he could give up 16 earned runs too. So
and 8 home runs.
Yeah, that's
a game.
I don't disagree with that. I think you just really have to know the rest of your roster, which Ed does, and matchups. And do you need a category? I need innings. I need strikeouts. I'm desperate. I'm going to go for the 2-start guy. So there's no right answer on this stuff. I just say my philosophy is I play the best pitchers every week and realize you're not always going to be right.
I have this one guy that I'm thinking about cutting. He's actually pitched pretty well, but he doesn't strike out a lot of people, and he pitches like 4.2 innings per game. And that guy is that Kwang Young Kim of the St. Louis Cardinals. It's like I actually think about cutting him because he just doesn't put up. Even in a 2-start week, he's going to pitch 9 innings, and it's not the thing. It's like whereas I could pick up a guy like who I'm not crazy about, though I think Andrea is, like Martin Perez, who I did pick up but didn't start this week. I started Hwang Young Kim over him because he's playing Astros. It's like it's like you got to make those moves sometimes where you go, hey, my ERA is, I'm not going to win ERA, but I'm in 4th place in ERA, which is perfectly fine. Have a little space between 5th, a lot of space between 8th. Maybe I can afford to start Martin Perez, who will strike out more batters than Kwang Hyung Kim.
I just think Martin Perez has been a good pitcher this year, and I don't know if it's because Boston wins, but he doesn't have that many wins. He only has like a couple wins, but he seems to go deep into games, and he's just useful. I'm not crazy about him. Okay, I had to really dig deep to figure out if I would start him or Robbie Ray today, but
which one did you decide on?
I decided to bench Robbie Ray because I think I did bench Robbie Ray. I just can't stand his home runs. It's when you're striking out 3 batters and you're giving, Ray. Let's say Ray strikes out 8 batters. I try to add it up how much I'm going to get in the points leagues. Let me just see what I did with him real quick. I definitely benched Robbie Ray and pitched Martin Perez. He's going in Houston. I don't like that. I do not like Boston going to Houston, but I checked the stats of the players, the batters in Houston against Martin Perez, and it doesn't seem like anybody is really that much of a threat. I don't know. Who knows? But
Houston isn't quite as good as they were 2 years ago as far as hitting threats.
Yeah. I just don't like Robbie Ray's he's crazy. Like his game log, if you look at his game log, he's given up home runs. Listen to this. In the last 5 games started, he's given up 10 home runs in the last 5 games started. It's either 2, 2, 3. He gave up 1, and then he gave up another 2 this past outing against the Yankees. But seriously, he hasn't gone a game without giving up home runs. In the past 7 outings, he's given up 15 home runs. I'm sorry, it's unacceptable. You just can't keep giving up that many home runs because all the runs score every time you give up one. Anybody on base scores, so his ERA is very bad. So while he's not walking batters like he used to, now he's just replaced it with home runs now,
which is worse actually.
It is worse. It's absolutely worse. Yeah.
Speaking of walking batters, I noticed yesterday that Tyler Chatwood walked 4 in a row, which he's back to the old good days. He walked in a run. That goes. Where are we at? Oh, we're at the 90-minute mark. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things, and we're going to prepare to say goodnight to everybody. George Hubson was out in the chat room and he wanted to say that Martin Perez has been mediocre because he really doesn't like Martin Perez for some reason. I think that Martin Perez slept with his wife. I'm pretty sure. There's some things going on. What do you think about Mike Schilt, Giovanni Gallegos, and the hat problem that happened over there in St. Louis? Anyone have anything you want to say about that?
I love Schilt for what he did, and I think he's right. Absolutely. I think he's 100% right.
Do you think...
Did the umps come out and say they had suspicions more than other players, or what was it?
No, he just got out to the mound. I don't even think he had pitched one pitch yet.
Yeah. It's just random.
They said they saw something on his hat as he was walking out to the mound. So he had never made a pitch. They looked at his hat, they took it, and Schilt walked out there. Yeah. Theoretically, he was going to give his own hat so he could go pitch, but the situation was so crazy that it degenerated into something where he got kicked out of the game.
Well, Schilt said, why are you calling? What, you're just going to start calling out him? Out of all the players that are just brazenly using sticky substances, you're gonna pick on this guy, dude? I'm sorry, it was just not.
That was the crazy thing about it, is that Schilt held a press conference where he basically said, no pitchers are not doing this, right? He basically said everybody is doing this, meaning that every pitcher is cheating at some level. We either need to make that part legit, legal, or we need to enforce it. The Major League Baseball's historically, the way they go about a problem is they pick one guy and they crucify that one guy, and they hope that everyone goes, we should stop doing that because they're watching now. And it wasn't Giovanni Gallegos this time, just like it wasn't Trevor Bauer before that. But just the thing, you like Schilt for saying the truth. Who wouldn't? But what do you think about pitchers using this stuff?
Yes.
Do you think all pitchers are using this stuff, or most of the pitchers are using this stuff?
They all use it. They're using it
all the time.
Unless they're bringing out a jar of Vaseline oil and a sandpaper board and putting it behind the rubber.
When you do the sandpaper, you do it when you're doing the sandpaper, you fix it into a Band-Aid on your body. That's how you get that to work. No one will notice it because it's the same color. I was a catcher for years, and we did all this cheating way back when in high school. Anyway.
Yeah, but this is something that needs to be dealt with in the league office in the off season. They come out and they say, look, here's the rules. If you get caught, you're tossed and you're suspended. And you can't doing this stuff in the middle of the 8th inning of a game in St. Louis out of nowhere, and it's not really blatant and everyone's doing it. This has to be something dealt with the league, which they're not capable of because the commissioner's an idiot. So just another sad part of baseball trying to enforce this thing. It doesn't look like they know what they're doing. It's a Keystone Cops out there.
They don't really care that much, to be honest with you. They don't care.
Yeah, they want to look like they're doing something, but they don't really want to do anything.
Exactly. It's a joke.
They only care if
they want to an example of someone. Yeah.
George,
but why is the rule such that the coach has to come out? Why does the manager have to come out and actually say something to the umpire for the umpire to do anything about the sticky substances? Because that's why it never gets enforced. There's something to that managers don't want to be the guy that calls out the other pitcher or the other team's pitcher because they know their guys are doing it. You can't leave it up to the coach, the manager of a team to call out the other team. The umpire, that's what they're there for, to be the middle guy that that calls out from a non-biased point of view. But if you're the manager and you're like, oh, I'm going to call out that team, well, that's fine. But a lot of times it doesn't happen because of they have something to lose too by calling out the other team. So
I think that like the guy that called out Gallegos, they didn't want to face Gallegos.
No. Actually, Joe West said that he saw it. So. Okay.
So I think famously the most famous call out of anybody was Billy Martin
Pineda.
sitting. No, Billy Martin sitting on George Brett's bat until he had a home run. Then the pine tar incident. He knew about it. He knew about it for more than a game, but he waited for him to hit a home run to call him out. You know what I mean? And
What about Pineda situation?
We've gone back 40 years in that one play, all the way back to the Brett game.
Well, I think that's the part of the reason why they don't call him out. They're waiting for the right moment. That was all I was going to add. But it turns out he wasn't called out by the coach. He was called out by the umpire.
That's true for that situation because he saw it himself.
Yeah.
He says he did anyway. I don't know what that means, but I don't know.
Unless anyone else has something to say. Oh, George Hudson had a really good point on this where he said that when he was a kid, if he said everyone else was doing it, his mother would slap him. Like, that's not really an excuse, right?
That's totally not an excuse. I'm glad that his mother was not nice, and he does not really like his mother very much. But
someone should go slap Mike Schilt for using the everyone else is doing it argument, which didn't fly with George's mother. Didn't fly with my mother. And
it's not. I don't think it. I just don't know if it's the same thing, really. I don't think that you should say like to your kid that it's okay if everybody else is doing it. And I don't. But in baseball, we do know that people are doing it. It was just odd that he would like. At what point do you say I'm going to start enforcing the rules? Well, they're collecting balls from all these pitchers, and they're studying them in a lab to see if they're sticky. And they said that they can't really find anything out until they get enough data. But that might not even be till 2022. But what's going on right now is that players are getting very frustrated with the fact that, I mean, shouldn't you be getting hit less? Shouldn't batters be getting hit less if they're putting sticky substances? So like right now we have a situation where it's totally rampant, the sticky substance usage, but the batters getting hit by pitches is also completely out of control. You would think that you would get a benefit from the sticky substance as a batter just because they can have a better grip, but they're gripping it so well that they're putting all kinds of spin on it, and then that makes it like a wiffle ball, and they just don't have a lot of control over it. I mean, mixed with the fact that they're... Go ahead.
That was always the reason why they said it was okay to do some things to the ball. The first thing, whenever you got a brand new ball, is that you'd work it in and try to scuff it up enough that you would have the control enough not to hit the batter. But my belief is actually the other side, is that they do so much with it that they have such good control that they're trying to do things that they wouldn't normally try or that they wouldn't have tried 15 years ago. You know. Because there's no better pitch than the curveball that looks like it's going to hit you in the face that goes through the strike zone. No one ever hits home run off that pitch.
So dangerous.
Yeah, but it's a tough pitch to throw. You know, but that's the one where the guy flinches and gets a called strike, and that's the ideal. Anyone want to talk about Will Craig and Javi Baez? You have any feelings on that? We're never been together.
Javi Baez rules. Okay, this guy rules. He's having a great season.
Javi Baez, I don't have him in any of my leagues, but he's my favorite baseball player on the Cubs, and by default, my favorite baseball player. And so I when something like that happens, I always think, yeah, that's kind of crazy. There's so much in that is like Joe Ross said, Javi Baez is that kid that you played Little League with who was just better than everybody and knew it. You know, who would, like run circles around you, go, nah, you can't catch me kind of thing. And
I don't have Baez on any of my teams. I've tried to get them, but nobody will part with them.
Which is strange because there are some flaws in his game from a fantasy standpoint that you might be able to pick him off from somebody. You know, he is like, of all the shortstops that are out there, where would you rank him? Like 9, 8, somewhere around there.
What?
Baez. I mean, you have like Tatis and Turner and Story. And and theoretically, Lindor was there. Maybe he's not now because he's bad. But you had Seager and Xander Bogaerts. If any of these guys you'd rather have Baez than? I'm a Baez fan, and I'm still saying I'd rather have all 5 of those. I get Lindor, and all right, Seager's injured. That's a different story.
In fantasy, I would take Baez because he steals bases and hits home runs. But if you get knocked for strikeouts, then he's not for you.
But Trey Turner steals bases and hits home runs. Xander Bogart steals a few bases. It hits home runs. Everybody in this listing steals bases at some level. Some steal a lot, but the Story hits home runs and steals bases. So I can see that, like you're saying, ahead of maybe Seager, who doesn't really steal any bases.
But this year, definitely better than Story, and he's better than. He's not better than Tatis, obviously. Tatis is the best hitter in the baseball by far, but I don't know. Is he better than? Yes, he's better. He's the best. There's nobody better than.
If you had Corey Seager and I had Javi Baez, you would take that trade. Can I get Seager for Baez?
I would give you Corey Seager and something for Baez.
I can see that because he's injured right now. But if they're both,
I don't like Corey Seager in general, but that's just me. He doesn't steal bases. He just hasn't lived up to his hype.
Baez.
Really? Okay, so how about you, Ed? Baez or
I drafted 12th out of 15 teams. I took Trevor Story with my first pick. I wish I would have got Baez someplace along the line.
Yeah, but how would you know? Trevor Story has such better plate skills than Baez. Baez, he strikes out 30% of the time. That's why he went in the third round or the second round. He did not. He had a nasty season last year too, but I love Baez. Do you think they're going to trade? They're not trading Baez. They have Javi Baez way.
I don't think they could like in level of like love of Cub players. Number 2 was Kyle Schwarber, and they got rid of him. Number 1 is Baez. Losing that would really change things a lot. They could get rid of you, Darvish, and people will live. They could get rid of Wilson Contreras and people live. Most Cub fans are now resolved that Chris Bryant won't be there, even though they'd like him to stay. So it really hinges on what they get for him. But man, if they got rid of Baez, even though
none of those guys are going as long as the Cubs keep winning,
they're going to trade Chris Bryant regardless. They could if they would have to be exactly a half game ahead of the Cardinals the whole year for them to keep Chris Bryant. If they get 3 games up, that team is going to sell off Bryant, figuring we got it now. We're 3 games up.
Is he in arbitration?
No, he's done. This is the end of the line. He had 2 years last year, and they were talking about trading him.
How much are you going to get for 2 months of Chris Bryant in a trade?
I think that best case scenario, you could get a return like what the Dodgers got for Betts, or what somewhere between where the Dodgers got for Betts and what you get a decent player and another decent prospect, something like that. That's what I mean.
Bryant,
and that's a better deal.
It's a little different because
it's a whole season versus half season.
It's a little different because I think the Dodgers knew they were going to be able to sign Betts to a contract. I don't know that for sure.
I don't know why they don't do it nowadays, but 10, 15 years ago, when people are looking at trading guys, they would have that guy contact the team that they were trading and try to work out the contract beforehand. Because, it would be a better deal if you knew you could keep him for next year. It's like, but you do get the rights to him this year. They don't do that anymore.
There's no way Bryant's gonna. I mean, he could in the off season, but Bryant's going to be a free agent. I mean, he's been trying to be a free agent for 3 years now, right? And he's got Boros.
And he's one of the guys.
Is he going to get any?
He sued his own team to get freedom. He's going to leave.
Right.
That's why Cub fans.
And he's not going to sign. He's not going to do a Mookie Betts where he re-signs or extends with the team that traded. He wants to be a free agent. Scott Boras is his agent, and I wonder what they can get for him because Manny Machado retrieved Yasniel Diaz. He's
not a bad player.
AA, I think. And
I have high hopes for him. He did well in spring training, and he's 20 years old or 21 years old. He's a kid still. But that's at least a player,
Right. So all I'm saying is that if the Cubs have a chance to make the playoffs, are they going to keep Bryant or do they want Yasniel Diaz?
Yeah, that is the one.
I'm not saying what they'll do. I don't know. I mean, maybe they get more for him, but I think
that
these teams prize their prospects more than winning a championship. You know,
not
some
the
of
Cubs.
these teams. So
The Cubs, the Cubs, the most important thing for the Cubs is margin. That's what's most important to them. And getting rid of Bryant would clear their margin.
well, yeah, and they got the thing. I know you're a Cub fan, and I've got ties to Chicago. Let's face it, they can do whatever they want because the Cub fans will be happy with the World Series because
The truth is, I am.
5 years ago will satisfy them for the next 100 years. I'm not really joking. They're still talking about the 16 series.
I'm perfectly fine with that. I spent the first 48 years of my life going, if the Cubs could just win one, I'd be happy. And every time I think about getting really mad about what they're playing, I'm mad about their ownership being a bunch of jerks that don't want to even try. That I can be mad about, but I still love the Cubs because they gave me the one. You know,
no,
I'm not going to walk away from
them. But your position, Doug, is you're mad at the ownership for not trying, right?
Yeah, just not trying.
I'm
That's
saying
the thing.
the other 99% of the Cub fans, don't really care. They can be pacified because they won a World Series 5 years ago.
And the truth is,
I know.
I hate saying this because I'm a Cub fan, but the Sox fans are better than the Cubs fans because most of the people in the stadium for the Cubs games are there just to drink. That's the thing. It's a party more than a baseball game to those guys.
Cub fans are still talking about how good Jake Arrieta was in 2015 and 16.
He had 2 no-hitters.
They don't put pressure on their ownership. You do. I know. It's like they don't care.
I only do it because they should go through the motions of trying. At least I
agree with you.
They are arguably the second most wealthy team in all of baseball.
Right.
You know, and
all
they're
I'm
actually.
All I'm saying is most Cub fans are not like you.
Well,
I am Bears or 86 Bears.
Yeah, that was.
We won a championship in my lifetime. I'm all.
Yeah, that was fine by me. You know, it's like I remember when the Bears played the Colts that might have been the moment I gave up on football was when the Bears played the Colts in the Super Bowl, because I was so certain after the opening kickoff when Devin Hester returned that game for a thing that they were going to win that game, and I was so disappointed at the end. It's like, screw football. It's all heartache and penalties. And unfortunately, baseball is now becoming all injuries. I'm just
taking a subtle rip at the Cub fans because they're easily.
No, we are. I don't know whether that's a rip. It's like if I am true to the idea that if I made a promise with my concept of the higher power that said, if you just give me one World Series of my lifetime, and they give me that one World Series of my lifetime, if I honor that deal with my higher power, that makes me a good person, not a bad person. Right?
Okay, yeah, but I'm just saying that gives the Cubs got a green light just to dismantle the team with no repercussions. Yep. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that was part of the sales package
from winning the World Series.
So, no, it's true. And only one team gets to win a World Series. So, we got about 10 minutes to go. Anyone have any final thoughts?
I have one comment, which doesn't really apply to baseball. I've sent some Facebook friend requests to you guys.
To me?
And if you didn't, to you and Malpal today.
Okay,
if you didn't get it, send one to me, Ed Heckman, and I'm wearing an Oriole shirt.
I'll approve it by tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I have a busy morning tomorrow. Definitely by tomorrow this time. I asked this. One thing about the Roundtable show is we don't have a really good way of ending. We just kind of go, we're done. I was going to throw out like a parting question. If we had parting comments, this is my question. You have the power of God. You can heal any one baseball player to full health. Who do you heal to full health? All the injured players. One guy.
That's going to be healthy fully?
Fully healthy.
Dude.
Mike Trout is like the face of baseball. But you only get one. I would pick Justin Verlander. Because with all those games versus Cleveland and Seattle, in Texas, he would break Nolan Ryan's career no-hitter record if he were fully healthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, what's the question?
It's like you can make somebody healthy.
Oh,
A baseball
I would
player.
make
One baseball player. Who do you make healthy?
Zach Gallen.
Zach Gallen. Pick
Mhm.
one. That's a good
my
choice.
bias. I mean, mine is totally biased because he's killing me, and I traded a lot to get him. Would be Luke
You're allowed
Voigt, and it looks like he is in the midst of a lost season.
Anybody you'd want to see healthy overnight, Eddie?
Big whiff.
I'd like to see Chris Davis get healthy for at least one season now.
Chris with a K or Chris with a C?
Chris with a C in Baltimore. He's
It would be
had
nice-
for all this year.
It'd be nice to see him
the
have one
Orioles
more decent
better?
year.
Seems like the Orioles are better off with him injured, though. So
Probably, but if
It's
he's
sad.
completely healthy, I think he could have one good year left in him.
I point to that contract as like the one contract that was just totally horrible, but I actually appreciate the fact that the Orioles were the last team to say to a player, "You did a lot of good for us. We're going to pay you after the fact." Because the first 6 years of his career, his salary was suppressed by the contract between the baseball and the Players Association over what you do with younger players. I appreciate the fact that the Orioles said, "You're our guy. We're going to pay you." It's a shame it turned out so poorly.
Yeah.
yeah,
Boris is his agent. And Peter Angelos, the owner, loves Chris Davis.
It's like other guys have gotten bigger contracts and have had, well, probably only marginally better careers, like Pujols with the Angels or what we're seeing from Cabrera now on the Tigers. Chris Davis gets more crap than he deserves. I just think that's my feeling. I remember having him in a league. It was one of those weird. Chris Davis had in a league that was it was 7x7, and one of the stats was grounded in double play, right? And I used to go when Chris Davis was on the Rangers. I'd go, the great thing about Chris Davis is that when there's a runner on first, he never hits into double play because he always strikes out. Anyway, with that, I am going to say goodnight to everybody as we're approaching 10.
Good night.
But I like
Adios.
Verlander.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
Matt,
Ed.
George, you guys.
Bye, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Take it easy. I enjoyed it.